So I am Eric Stazak, Executive Vice President at Westward 360, responsible for business development and growth of our portfolio, and historically was also department head for all of our association operations for the last 8 years of my 13-year tenure with the organization. We have on the call with us as well today Carrie Bowers, our Director of Training, who handles a lot of internal trainings for our new incoming community managers and other staff. And then with some moderation help from Adrian Barker, our Regional Director on staff as well. So we have a few of us that are going to be helping boards this evening walk through the basic functionality in Vantaca. The idea being that we can get through an overview of that over the first 30 to 35 minutes of this evening, leaving time for questions and answers, going back to any specific functions and pages that we want to go to, and hopefully wrap up around the 7 o'clock hour. On the invite, we did have it extended to 7:30 Central, just in case any questions or complicated issues push us a little bit over, but hopefully we can get you guys in and out in about an hour. I know in the Chicagoland area, it's a beautiful day, so we don't want to infringe on people's ability to take advantage of some of the nice weather. But we appreciate you coming on board for this. We're excited to get this training program moving. We're going to be doing a few more instances of this throughout each year, just so that if you can't one, you'll have an opportunity to attend another. Like our other webinars, we're also recording this session. So we will have the recording distributed to all attendees a little bit later this week, if not by Monday. And then the recording will also be posted on our website under the education and events sections for future posterity, future reference. If you ever want to revisit a function or watch the entire webinar or send it to the rest of your board, that's a great opportunity to do so. Also a great opportunity as you come up on annual meetings later this year and have new board members come on board. It's a nice orientation to be able to get them a little bit more familiarized with the system. So without further ado, we'll go ahead and get our screens shared and dive into some of our functionality. Just give me one moment. And for reference, we are using a test account that we set up for these sorts of purposes. So don't be thrown by addresses, names, or balances that look a little bit concerning or wonky. We just don't want to be in the position of unintentionally sharing any sort of private or personal information about any of your individual communities. If there's a specific report or anything you want us to dive into for your individual community, we always can, with your permission, to take a look at a more specific issue or function. But we do want to keep this a bit more high level and go through a lot of the basics here today. We'll particularly be focusing on that lower sort of left-hand side of the screen where my cursor is hovering under board actions. That's the meat and potatoes of what we want to focus on here today, because these are going to be the functions that are going to be most consistently used by board members and the ones that you should concern yourselves with the most. But we will start with a brief overview of just some of the dashboard items that are visible to all homeowners in your community, just so that you've got a little bit of familiarity, whether that's for yourself as you make payments or log requests, view the calendar, or get any questions from the homeowners within your community. If you do have any questions that weren't pre-submitted, feel free to put them in the chat. We will get to them. Adrian, Carrie, and I will make sure that we keep track of those. But in the meantime, just so that we can make sure we're cognizant of time, we don't want to just stop and start over and over and over again. So if we can just get questions, unless they're particularly pressing or urgent, just post it in the chat. That would be great. So just starting off here, and then a couple menu options later, we'll kick it over to Carrie to split up some of our duties here. But this is the home dashboard. So once you log into your account, you should see something that looks very much like this. Welcome with your name. Your name should also be displayed in the upper right. Your unit, along with the community name and your account number, should always be in this little section here. If you're a homeowner who owns multiple units, either within that same community or amongst other communities that we also manage, we typically merge those accounts, and any additional units would be listed here. So if you needed to see a view and you owned, 2 different homes or units within Presidential Valley, you'd be able to toggle between the couple of different units that you own and are a resident of. Right under here, it just has a quick little note, just because a lot of the functionality that people utilize the portal for primarily is processing their payments. Obviously, there's a lot of other functionality, but a good deal of homeowners primarily utilize it as a way to check their balance, process assessment payments, and do things of that nature. So most folks should see a message that looks like this on their dashboard. I will say something to keep in mind, and this is more of a follow-up for you with your individual manager. Vantaca, the system that we're looking at right now, it does allow us a good deal of customization. So if there's ever like a particular message that you would prefer to be displayed on this little dashboard here, rather than reference to making a payment, let your manager know, and we should be able to accommodate that. Sometimes there might be an important meeting coming up. Sometimes there's an important event that you want to put on residents and owners' radars. So we do have some customization abilities here, just as a point of reference. Folks will be able to see their existing account balance along with this section, upcoming charges, which should show you what is upcoming for the next first of the month. So as of March 25th, your balance in your account will list what is due and owing through March 31st. And then in your upcoming charges section, you should always see what is coming up for the next first of the month. So what that April 1st assessment is. Obviously, it's going to be the same amount as it was last month, but it's a nice little tool just in case, maybe there's a special assessment starting, maybe there's a pass-through expense that's newly being billed as of the 1st. So it gives folks a little bit of a heads up. From there, you can do things like click through to make a payment via e-check and credit card. You can go to manage your payments, where you can end up, adjusting the credit card or the bank account for which that you're utilizing. If you have recurring payments set up, this owner doesn't in the sample account, but if you needed to update your ACH or the date of your recurring credit card payment, or however you're processing your payment, you can always just click this e-check credit card payment or manage payments. You can also click account details or this payment function to also get to that same payments page. If you are not set up for auto draft or ACH for automatic debit of your account on a monthly basis through the portal, in this auto draft field, it'll say not enrolled. And if you did want to enroll, all you have to do is just click this little pencil, this blue pencil button, and this will open up this page that explains the ACH process. It reviews the income accounts that we generally can process through ACH. So that includes assessments, pet fees, special assessments, storage assessments, parking assessments, really any and all sort of recurring charges that your community might have assessed on a regular monthly basis. And from there, all you need to do is just click that enroll button, and then it'll pop up with an option to just add your specific banking information. So nice and simple. If you ever get questions from homeowners, or if you are interested in setting that up, that auto draft process, as long as you have your banking credentials handy, that's a very simple, quick, easy process, and generally foolproof. So we highly encourage that. There's no fees for processing those payments. So definitely a recommended payment option. And then just quickly reviewing here on the dashboard, if you as a homeowner have any requests open that are as of yet unresolved, those will be listed here. If you have any upcoming reservations, those would be listed in this section here. If you're a board member, any of your board actions, which we'll be getting to shortly, would be, there's a quick link to be able to look at, do you have architectural committee requests? Are there work orders that are in your queue to look at and approve? Is there collections activity or violations activity that you need to take a look at and review? So those would be listed there. And again, ARCs and any sort of votes for those requests would be listed in this little module here. Beyond that, and finally on this page here on the dashboard, any recent broadcast messages that were sent out to the community would also get posted in this section. So if you ever needed to go back and look at a notice that Carrie or I or Adrian recently sent to your community or your manager or someone in leadership, you can reference those, click on them, and then view that original message. Again, a lot of these are test accounts, so this would normally share maybe it's a water shutoff that was necessary for a plumbing repair. Maybe it's an announcement about your upcoming board meeting. Those would be listed in that announcement section. Moving into the payment section, again, after you click this, it'll again bring up your account. It'll list your current balance, those same fields I mentioned earlier, and then it'll post any of your recent account history. So it initially shows your most recent charges and payments. You can click to see all of your account history. So you can see any past payments for as long as you've been a homeowner under Westward 360's management of your community. So if you're a long-term client dating back 5, 10, 15 years, you might be able to see a really, really long trove of history if you ever needed to reference that. You can download a copy of your statement if you just click this button here. And then, if you had additional units under your ownership at other communities or within the same community, you'd be able to toggle between those ledgers right here. So sometimes if you get a request from your mortgage lender asking for a copy of your statement or any other sort of regulatory body that might need one of those, here's a good place where you can actually generate that yourself. You can also request that from the accounting department or your manager, but this is a little bit of a shortcut to be able to kind of do a bit of self-service as well. There's the requests functionality, which if you're a homeowner or a board member and you wanted to log a request while you're in the portal, you can create a general request, which will give you a few different options. That gives you a little bit of an overview and some guidance on which sort of menu options you should select for the kind of request that you're submitting. This allows you to ensure that the correct unit is placed along with the request. So if you own a couple of units, this is obviously important if your maintenance request or if the complaint or if the issue that you're bringing to our attention is specific to only one of those units. Very good just to make sure that you have the right one selected. By default, if you only own one unit, then it's always just going to pull up that particular unit. There are a few different options for the kind of request. A lot of those would fall under general inquiry, service request. Maybe it's a collections question if you're a homeowner that's fallen behind. Maybe there's a late fee that was applied and you want to contest that or ask a question about it. Maybe there's a refund or a reimbursement. So we have a few pre-populated fields that you can select. But beyond that, if it doesn't really fit neatly into one of those categories, that's okay. I would recommend just keeping that as a general inquiry. And then you can put the subject of your request or question. You can add any content to the body. So as much detail as you can or want to share, you have that ability. And then what we love even more is that if you have anything that is definitely backed up and substantiated with photographic evidence, if there's video, if there's documents that you need to include with your request, you can just click this Select Files button and then add any of those attachments there. I believe the storage capacity is 100 megabytes. So even if you have some large attachments at times, those can often still get attached and go through successfully. But if you do get a rejection, maybe take a look at the size of the file that you are trying to attach, especially long form video content or things of that nature. If you have particularly an ARC request, and again, for just not to use too much jargon, but ARC requests usually refer to an architectural review committee request. So for instance, single family home communities, if you're making a change that's governed by your community's rules and regulations or its declaration and bylaws, that's going to fall under architectural committee review, or sometimes if that committee doesn't exist, that might just be the board. Within townhome and condominium associations, sometimes you don't always use the phrase ARC. That might be like a remodel request or an improvement or an alteration request, but these are kind of one and the same in terms of the nomenclature. But that is where you could submit something like, hey, I'm planning on doing a swap out of my garage door, and I want to make sure that I'm following the proper color, the design, any sort of specs that have to be followed for that request. This is where you can put in that detail. There is a form that pre-populates here, and if your community doesn't have its own specific remodeling or ARC request form, there is just a more or less a generic one here. If your community does have its own architectural request form, we can remove this and then swap that out and make sure that the one uploaded for the portal for your owners is the one that is specific to your individual community. So if there is any doubt of that, if you're concerned, if the ARC form that is in that section is not the one that might exist in your rules and regulations, alert your manager and the team, and we can make sure that we get that changed for you if it isn't already. Beyond that, you can look at areas of work. So you can select what you're altering. Again, the subject, any detail, specs, materials, specifications that you need to list, start time and end date estimations for the work, and then the big one, attachments. So whether that's images, proposals, certificates of insurance, evidence of licensure, things of that nature, make sure that those are attached there. Beyond that, this is a bit particular for board members, but we do have community and amenity calendars that are set up. So if you are a community that does have amenities that are reserved on a frequent basis, maybe that's a clubhouse, maybe that's a party room, maybe that is, even things like elevators for moves and things of that nature. Some of those things can be requested via that. Otherwise, we usually just use this community calendar to share a lot of those things. So for sample purposes, we have listed here, you could put your board meeting dates, you could put any sort of recurring maintenance events that happen, like if you have a routine pest control visit, another board meeting date here. This as a sample, there was a community garage sale. So these things can be posted in here by the management staff. But also newly in 2026, Vantaca allows board members to put things on here. So if there is like an executive committee that the board wants to put in on your community calendar and have that listed just for board view only, you have that ability. If you wanted to post a particular sort of event that management isn't involved with all that much, but the community is at an overarching level, you can put that in here as a board member as well. So you can name the event, the start and end times for it, and the dates. If it's an all-day event, you can mark that as well. Your time zone will be reflective of the time zone that you live in. So if you're in the Midwest, if you're in the Chicago market, that'll be Central Time. If you're out in the Las Vegas area, that'll be Western and Pacific Time. And then you have the ability to select whether or not that repeats daily, weekly, monthly, annually. By and large, we're the ones that post a lot of those things in here. But again, there is some ability for the board to post as well. The one thing to be careful of and just cognizant of is this security drop down. So this will determine who can see these things. So if it's for something for which all community members should see, you can select everyone or homeowners. And that way homeowners see that as well as board members. Everyone allows board members, homeowners, and our staff to see it. And then internal only would really just be for our purposes as Westward 360 staff. And then boards only, that would be, as it's listed there, self-explanatory, only for board view. So that is a function that is more newly available to boards that didn't used to be available back in mid-2025, but that is something that Vantaca did roll out. But again, if you're intimidated by that at all or nervous about utilizing it, this should help a bit. But if you need any additional guidance, your manager or we can help assist you through that. One thing I like to point out, and we'll do a little bit of jumping between the owner and the board section here, because we do get questions about this frequently, and hopefully this clarifies things. So board members will always be able to see all homeowner contact details, information, names, mailing addresses, all sorts of really good information. And where that's visible for board members is under board actions, and it's under homeowners. So if I click here, for Presidential Valley, for instance, you are going to be able to see their account number, the homeowner name, their address, their email address, their balance, and it's not even just limited to that. And bear with me a second here, just because this will be a helpful one for you. But if you're looking for phone numbers or any other sort of fields, these three vertical dots that are listed here, you see it here to the right of account number, to the right of homeowners. If you click on any one of those, this allows you to adjust the settings for these columns and the information that you see. So if you hover over the column section here, you can see there's a number of other interesting fields that, depending on what homeowner information you're looking for, you can make sure that this is also displayed. So I think like the glaring one missing to me by default when we open this up is phone number. So maybe you're a board member who's looking for the phone number of a particular unit owner because you have something urgent to address with them, or you needed to get in touch with them for something community related. If you come down here, you're able to see that phone is an option. So if you just simply click that, now when you go to revisit this, and I will say for a few of these owners, we haven't put in like phone number details, but for any homeowner for which we have their phone number, you will now see those phone numbers listed. And again, that's these vertical dots going to the column section, and then you can select what you want to see here. Maybe that's whether they have if there's a second owner, maybe there are two folks that are on the deed, spouses, for instance, or domestic partners, or other family members of any kind. If you wanted to see if there's a third-party business name, like an LLC associated with it, or anything else there that might be of use, you can always put that on. And then one nice thing too that I want to just show you as well is that if you don't want to go through that process again, and you want to make sure that every time you open up this homeowners list, that phone number always stays, all you need to do is hover over to this little gear icon next to export. And there's a little section that just says save grid settings. So anytime you make a change and add a column to this, if you simply select save grid settings, it'll tell you that this was successfully saved. And now every time you open this, all of those data fields will pop back up just as they were open for you when you originally were in here. So I always like reminding folks of that. This way it saves you a little bit of time next time you go to look for that information, and you don't have to mess around with adjusting settings nearly as frequently. You also have the ability, if you needed a report of this, just to, sometimes we have a board that might want to print this out periodically, keep a copy with them, reprint it and re-download it, every once in a while as there's new owner activity. You can always just click this export button, and then that will download all of the homeowner file information as an Excel document. The reason I jumped down to homeowners is because there's also this directory function. And again, sorry that it's a little bit of jumping around, but here is where board members specifically, get a little bit tripped up. When you look at the directory, you'll notice by default, there aren't nearly as many options in terms of columns, and there's a lot of information that is not visible. The reason being is that we are not authorized, nor do we want to be sharing individual unit owner information with all of their neighbors and fellow unit owners, unless that unit owner has expressly authorized to do so. So the reason that you might look at that directory section and might not see any information for phone numbers or email addresses for those units, and sometimes even the name, is because that person hasn't agreed to share that with their neighbors. So the primary distinction to remember here is that the directory is the homeowner view throughout the entire community. Homeowners under board actions is your view as a board member. So those are the two things to remember. Sometimes I'll get an escalation call where a board member tells me, Eric, something's wrong with the portal. I went to the directory and I'm not seeing any information for my homeowners, and I needed to pull a report. And then I'll politely let them know that, hey, you know what? It's actually not that directory section. You as a board member have this homeowner field right here where you can look at all of that. If any of your homeowners ever ask if, hey, I do want to share my phone and email address, there are individual profile settings when you go up to the upper right, where you can look at your profile. You can take a look at your account preferences. And then on the homeowner directory, Let's say I said, hey, you know what? I do want my neighbors to see my phone number, and I do want them to see my email address. You can simply turn that on, click update, and now those saved successfully. That homeowner who just did that, now their information will be visible to the entire community. So that's just an important distinction I like to hit on. Again, homeowners, that is the report that you want if you're looking for all of that homeowner detail. The next one here is a big one. It's an important one, and one that we get excited about, and then one for which, if your community doesn't have the right structure or it's missing any information, again, a good thing to bring up with your management team. But the documents section is where things like association financials, copies of bank statements, any board files that need to be shared for board purview only, any of those things that are relevant to the community that are routinely needed for reference by the board or homeowners, we like to store in the documents section. By default, we do have a general folder structure that's already set up, but one of the benefits of Vantaca, again, is it's what's the word I'm looking for? Customization, customizability, whatever the right term is. We can add folders. We can change some of the structure if you like. So if you want a separate, distinct folder for maintenance agreements or something else, or you want some of the nomenclature to be changed, you can do that. You can ask your management team, and we can adjust that. We can create subfolders under each one of the larger document sections too. So if beyond declaration and rules, you want to have a folder for plats, if you have plats or building drawings on file, if there are amendments, resolutions, anything like that, we can always create folders for those and then upload those documents accordingly. One of the nice things too, just for your peace of mind, is that this access column shows you who has visibility into those things. So association financials, at first you might say, hey, shoot, why does this say public? Because those probably shouldn't be public. When you dive into it though, we have some where, there's an annual income statement or an annual financial report that most associations have to provide to their owners. This folder is where we'll put that, and we have a specific folder to share those things for homeowners, and those are listed with homeowner as the access level. For detailed financial reports, the ones that contain sensitive information like bank statements, legal notices and invoices, AR reports that list delinquencies and things of that nature that shouldn't be shared with homeowners, those things will always be under board view only. So that's your bit of peace of mind that when we're uploading those things, we are very cognizant of making sure that they're uploaded to the appropriate access permissions, that we're not sharing sensitive information that shouldn't be shared with homeowners, and that we're ensuring that the board has the proper transparency and visibility that it needs as it's storing and referencing its documentation. Again, if there's any sort of cluttering you see in the folders, if there's any sort of changes or adjustments to the structure of them, ask your management team, and we can absolutely make some of those accommodations and adjustments for you. Final couple things on this top half of the section. There are some already included embedded brief tutorial videos for some of the basic functionality within Vantaca. So basics of changing your password, updating your contact details, transaction history, downloading a statement, and looking at open requests. Some of those are already in here. Again, to the theme of customization. If there are any routine functions that you think would be helpful for board members to show or to have access to, just let us know. We're always open to suggestions and ideas. There are additional videos we could post here. There's also a board section for this similarly that we'll get to shortly. So if there's any sort of board functions that you'd like, even if it's like this exact recording, I think this one is probably a good one to put in the board member FAQ and how-to section, so that this webinar is also in this area of Vantaca for you for future reference. But some of these are just really nice to direct homeowners to. We often do so if they're asking about some of these routine questions. And again, if you have feedback or suggestions on other things you'd like to see in this section, we can do that as well. This FAQ section by default for most communities can often be left blank. We did recently update this so that it has some additional information about some functions that exist outside of Vantaca, or just answering some basic questions. So for instance, most of you, when you log in and see the FAQ section, you'll see a couple guides on, can I pay my assessments online? Yes. Once you're logged in, go to the make a payment section. If you're trying to submit a request for selling or refinancing documents, leasing or lease renewal documents, or looking to schedule a move request or delivery, those are handled by a separate team, but we have linked here so that we make it nice and easy for you to be able to access those and get to the right folks, submit your form and request. And this is a nice little tool here. Again, if there are any other FAQs specific to your community or anything else that you think would be useful to include here, we can absolutely put this, we can add customization so that you can see additional info that is a bit more specific to your community. Just taking a brief pause, and then we will hit it right into the board actions. Any questions thus far on those basic functions? Excellent. Carrie, do you mind if we migrate over to you to help handle the initial couple of items on board actions, particularly your ARCs and work orders?
Absolutely.
Do you want
Thank
me to
you, Eric?
stop presenting, and if you wanted to present, or which do you prefer?
Let's do it. Let's do it. Thank you, everybody. Give me one moment while I share my screen. Again, I'm Carrie Bowers. I am the Community Association Manager Trainer. I've been in my role for almost a year, but I've been with the company since 2017, and I've been working with the Vantaca software since 2020. I learned it during a pandemic, no less, so I had to learn fast, so I sort of know what I'm doing. So I wanted to kind of touch back to the homeowner tab here. So these board actions are really those permissions that are specific for you as board members. So keep that in mind. It's an important section specific for you. Eric covered the top portion, which is homeowner related. This bottom portion is board member related per the permissions that we have set up for you in the system. I'm going to go back to the homeowners section really quick, because I just want to show you one pretty important function that you may want to utilize if you're looking for something specific to a homeowner. I suggest, well, first making sure, and I think it's a default, but first making sure that you have the account number column handy, because that will give you the ability to choose that homeowner to dive a little tiny deeper into that homeowner. So once I select that account number, now I can view a little more information that is specific to that one homeowner that I selected. I can see the property address, if there was any other different type of mailing address, their email, contact information, and then their balance, of course, and then any open items that they specifically have. You will have access to these open items on, a couple of these different tabs that I'm going to go over. But just know, if you are looking at a specific homeowner, you have the ability to go ahead and take a look at that.
Carrie, thank you so much for hitting on this, because that was a glaring oversight on my part, because this is really helpful, especially in my experience. We all know every community, you've got your squeaky wheel owners that might, whether right or wrong, sometimes they're critical of, whether we missed responding to something or whatever the case is, or someone says, hey, I've got all these work orders open and I'm not getting a response, or they're just, they've got a lot of activity on there. This is a nice way for you to check as a board member to trust and verify, right? If you, John Q. Adams, if that tends to be someone where you're like, hey, they always have a lot of requests, I want to make sure that I'm cognizant and I see what they have open. This is a great way to look at that. So thank you for hitting on this, Carrie.
I got your back, Eric. And I've got the board members back. I like to go a little more in detail with stuff. I mean, I'm the trainer, I have to, right? So right here, we're going to see the open items. If there are any items that have been completed or have just been closed out from the account, you do have the ability to view the full history of the items that have been submitted on this homeowner's behalf. So you would just honestly click this include closed, and you have the ability to scroll through the history, and the history is always going to stay there. Even if we void something out, if we made a mistake, something, you know, what have you, something's closed out, it's always going to be there. The history, since the owner has been a part of the system, all the history is always going to be included. So just keep that in mind if you ever needed to go back and look at something that was closed out. I'm going to now touch on the architecturals. So immediately you will come to this page. You can unclick my items. Usually it's going to just show your specific items that you have submitted if you submitted an architectural or an alteration to your home. So you're able to view your items only, but then you also have the ability to view all the open ones in the community. These are going to be communicated to you via email, but of course you have the ability to review anything that has come in for your community, and you're literally just going to click on it and then now view the details. You can see every item that is submitted through the system is going to have a ticket number, so that keep that in handy. You can see the step that a specific request is on. It will be the like for instance with this one, it's application received, so we know that it's still, you know, under review at this time. We want to make sure that we have everything before we move it anywhere else. We've got the type, and then we've got the specific details. If you need to see any sort of an attachment, that's going to be up here at the top, and then you'd be able to review. Well, this one doesn't have attachments, but you'd be able to review the application itself and then the necessary documents that were included with it. If you had a question or you need to communicate something to your manager or the assistant, you do have the ability to hit new message and then choose who you would like to send a message to. You can even, with this one in particular, because we received the application, you do have the ability to select the homeowner to send a message to. We can just put, you know, need more information and flat, for instance, and then send the message, and then that will be emailed to that specific homeowner that we have chosen to take a look at that submitted their request. So I just really want to point out too, again, with the homeowner section, there's these different columns that can also be altered for your viewing. So if you hit these three lines, you do have the ability to access different columns for your display. So if you wanted to see when something came in, you can do created, you know, time, for instance. Click out of there. Oh, I'm sorry. Well, mine's not updating right away. I apologize. Again, whenever you add that column, make sure you save your grid settings as well. And then you can, of course, always put something in one of these boxes to kind of narrow down and filter what you are also looking for. Say there's, you know, been a lot of, you know, roof replacement requests. You can just bring up the roof ones that are going to come up, not in this training scenario, but that definitely happens in a lot of communities that we manage, especially when it gets close to summer. So yeah, so then, you know, those messages that you are submitting through these different action types, for instance, with the manager one, just know that your manager will get your message within the software. Work orders is going to work a little similarly. You again can see all the open work orders for your association. Again, I always encourage even the managers to add this column of service providers, so then you know exactly if a work order was in fact issued to a specific vendor for that repair or that service or that maintenance item to be taken care of. And then again, you can always view that particular, let's go to one here. You can view that particular ticket. If there are any attachments, always look for that paperclip. You can see the details. Usually you want to start off at the bottom. That's when the request first was submitted. And then you can see the necessary steps. Each one of these tickets takes a necessary step to complete. You can have access to that. And then if you needed, again, to submit any sort of a message to your manager or to the assistant manager, you have the ability to do that. That message will come through and the manager or the assistant will follow up with your question or your concern or look into, whatever your message indicates. Do we want to take questions now, Eric, or do you want to wait to the end?
Lauren, is it a quick question?
Yeah, so
It is.
Sorry, it is. It's you're under board actions records. So that's where I would find that history. That's my question.
If you were
Yep.
looking for any open work orders for your association that was submitted either from a homeowner or from your manager, you would find that listed under the work orders section here. Yes.
Thank you. I just wanted to know the path.
Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome. And then again, if you needed to see the full history and to see if something has been completed or even voided because we got the, address wrong or whatever the case may be, you can look under closed as well to see anything that has been completed or closed out. And then lastly, in my section, I can always keep going too, Eric, if you need me to, but I was going to go over violations.
That'd be great.
Again, are going to work. Gail has a question.
Yeah, I think it's a quick question. Is there the capability to search work orders or accounts by the ticket number? We find a lot of ticket numbers get issued to our owners and then they just disappear. They never show up on the portal.
Again, it's going to be with these columns. You have the ability, just know when you go to columns, when you're looking for a ticket number, we call them XN numbers in the software. So make sure that you bring up this XN column because that will give you the ability to now search the ticket.
Great, thank you.
So if someone gives you a ticket number, go ahead and input that number and then you're able to pull up that specific ticket. And that's with any of these sections in here that you have the ability to review and look at, just know that if you put that ticket number in there, now you have it and you can view it as well. Or if you know it's open on a specific homeowner's account, you can also just go to that homeowner's account like I showed you on the homeowners section. Julie has a question. Julie, you have a question? You're muted if you have a question.
I'm sorry. I was talking. I'm so sorry about that.
That's okay.
Are all these permission specific? If you're a board member, you should be able to see it, or within board members, you can be restricted.
You should have all these permissions. We can, right, Eric? We can, make it specific to associations, but.
Yeah, I think Julie had submitted a pre-submitted question that I was going to get to, but I can briefly touch on it here. One caveat to know is that when general inquiries come in, Typically the ones that will populate under work orders are going to be things that are generally maintenance minded in most cases. So that generally is what board members will have access to. There may be certain tickets that come in that might be related to like a fee waiver request that hasn't yet been, it isn't visible to the board until it gets into the board tasks section. So there sometimes are a few different varieties of requests that aren't as easily visible to the board. Our one workaround for that is that we do have the ability to generate custom reports that do send you a summary of some of those things that are open that might not be immediately visible under work orders. So Julie, in your case, I'd recommend, and feel free to loop me in on the communication as well, but reach out to your manager and we can start getting you a customized report. And that really goes for any board members. That gives you a little bit more of a summary of some of those actions and things that aren't always visible under the work orders, but still might be things that we're working on for your homeowners.
Okay, thank you.
Got it.
All right, and then I was going to go over violations. So here you will have access to all the open violations. So when your managers are out doing their inspections or any violations that you submit over to your manager for us to go ahead and issue to the homeowners, you'll be able to see them issued and the history and the details, more importantly. You have the ability to go ahead and, again, if you need to look up something by the XN number, add that column. And then go ahead and click on your ticket. And I wanted to go here really quick. I think you just hit the attachment. Yeah, here we go. Now you have the ability to see the details of the communication that was sent to the owner, as well as, sorry, I did this one because I thought it was a fun one to do. You can see our template of the violation, as well as the homeowner can also see what they are in violation of. We can include any images, so if they left trash cans out, so on and so forth. Now you can have the ability to go ahead and see the details of the communication that was in fact sent to the owner. In a lot of cases, these are emailed as well as mailed out. But now you can see, you know, all the details of the open violations on the account. And then again, if you need to communicate to your manager to maybe, you know, escalate a specific violation, you will have the ability to, of course, go ahead and send a message on that ticket as well to have it escalated within, you know, a specific time period per your rules and regulations of your community. And then you can look at closed ones too. So you can see any closed ones that homeowners are no longer in violation of. And we can, again, if they are in violation of it within a certain time period, we can always reopen that specific violation again as well. All right, Eric, do you want to take it away or do you want me to go through something else? Julie's got another question.
Sorry, can you show, does it record or show if a board member communicated with the manager? Like, is the thread available underneath in any of this? Like, how do you know if a board responded to the item for the history of it? I mean, I know it's being recorded in a file. I just don't know if it's visible.
The history should stay on the ticket altogether for your viewing as well. I just don't know if I have an example right now to show you. But you'll see, like, if you replied or sent a message to a manager, it would be listed in that particular ticket. I just don't know if I have an example right now. That's a good question. I can look for one if Eric wants me to. I just don't have one available right now, but I'm almost positive that all the communication between you and the manager would stay on that particular ticket.
Okay, that's what I just wondered. Thank you.
Sure.
Yeah, I do believe that is the case, but we can likely test one out. Maybe Carrie, if you wanted to, while I'm going over these final financials items, maybe if there's an example that you can find, and then I can take over sharing here.
Absolutely.
A quick question.
Yeah, Michelle, go ahead.
As an owner, I've seen where the tickets are closed, but they're not addressed. Is it because there's like a time frame for the tickets to be open and they're automatically closed?
Nothing should really be automatically closed unless there's a note in there that says like the reason why. Sometimes, you might see one that's closed because it was duplicative. Sometimes we get multiple entries or multiple submissions for the same issue. And just to organize ourselves and to ensure we're not working over each other, we might close something out that was a double or a triple of the same request. But if you are seeing a ticket that was closed like prematurely and you're not really sure why, I would definitely, like with that same reply function that Carrie was just showing, or that even if you see on where my screen is shared, let's say this ticket was closed and Michelle, as a board member, are like, hey, you know what? I don't think that that's quite closed yet. That's an opportunity for you to respond back to that person that closed it and say, hey, you know what, assistant community manager, can you reopen this? I think there's still follow-up that has to happen here.
Okay, thank you.
And then Charles, just quickly to address that, had asked a question about how long should it take for a manager to reply to a request. If it's something that's non-urgent, the standard that we want to maintain with our team is that for homeowner requests that are, again, non-urgent, up to 48 hours or 2 business days. So if it comes in on a Friday, likely either, especially early on a Friday, it might get a response that same day, but it shouldn't be really much later than Monday. It being the second business day. If you are chronically seeing that things are not being responded to, that needs to be escalated to, your manager, supervisor, or reach out to your manager to make sure that we're being prompt. Part of the reason that we want this available in Vantaca is accountability, right? We want visibility for the board to be able to see what we're working on. We want you to see, for better or for worse sometimes, how we're doing. And that can be a nice barometer of indicating that there's an issue, and indicating whether it's something that you need to escalate to the supervisor, and make sure that we're holding our managers accountable to being responsive, being engaging, and things of that nature. So just to shift gears a little bit, just because the next couple of items here are the things that I think are going to be really insightful for board members. And I just want to make sure we've got enough time to go through these over the next few minutes here. But one, collections. This section will show you any of the collections status and balances for the unit owners within your community. Again, you don't have to be super alarmed by all these big balances. This is a test account. Hopefully most of you out there don't have crazy AR reports with a lot of homeowner balances open and unresolved. But this is the section where you can see any of those outstanding balances, whether they're 30, 60, 90, years delinquent in some cases where there might be a complicated legal situation going on. But this is a helpful field for you to see what exact step in the process this delinquency is at, what the balance is, unit owner by unit owner, what any of the details are regarding that particular unit, including the name and address. The attachments would consist of the actual notices that were sent out to that homeowner about the delinquency. So for instance, it'll pop open. This is a template, a copy here. But if this was, specific to a particular owner's balance, this would be a copy of that delinquency reminder notice that was sent out, detailing their exact balances, giving them instructions on how to make their payment, and a number of other sort of helpful items here. This also includes a copy of their ledger so that we're also backing up what the authority of that letter says with actual materials and evidence of that delinquency. So definitely an important screen for you to make sure that you're familiar with. If you want to view any further into some of the details of that, similarly, you can see, maybe this, if this was a case where there's been a lot of back and forth and this has been escalated a number of times, you'd be able to see all of the steps that were taken, whether that was the initial friendly reminder, whether it was the 60-day notice, maybe it was a 90-day collection turnover letter, depending on what your community's cadence is for referring delinquent balances to your preferred collections attorney. But this is a really good dashboard to be able to see that and what the exact collection status is for your community. Similarly, as Carrie's mentioned on a few different pages, but these column functions are always here. So if you want to make sure that the homeowner is listed, if you want to make sure the property address is listed, if the XN number is of value to you, you can always add those, save your grid settings, and now you've got a little bit more detailed of a report. One of the nice things too is that when you're under the homeowner view, it gives you a little bit of a peek at the balances too. So even if you're not on the collections tab, on the far right column, depending on how you have your grid settings set up, you can see the bird's eye view of account balances. So I always let board members know that they can also see current balances on this view, and then you can get the further detail in the collections section. And while a number of these examples here are in step 1, if this was at step 2, like 60-day demand, that would be listed on here. If it was at, collection turnover status, where a notice has been sent that unless payment has been made or is made in the next 24 to 48 hours, that it will go to the attorney. All of these statuses will list that. If it's already with the attorney and it's in collection status, then it will also just say with attorney. So you've got peace of mind that that account has already been referred to your preferred collections attorney. The couple of sections that I'm kind of most excited to show you are the bank accounts and reports function, and particularly bank accounts. So all of you have visibility into the bank account balances and banking detail for the communities that are for the community. And primarily that's going to be your operating account and any reserves account that is held with one of the partner banks with whom we work. So that might either be Wintrust for some customers, or that might be Alliance Association Bank. But any accounts that are open with those particular banks, you will get a lot of really great financial detail that's updated essentially in real time. This syncs up every 24 hours with the bank via an integration that's built in through Vantaca. And what that means to you is that if you are the board president of Rich Uncle Moneybags right here, and if that's your operating account, which is very flush with cash in this example, if you simply just click on this view section, and this is, again, I think a section that some board members don't realize exists, you have visibility into all of the detailed inflows and outflows that are happening with your community. So whether that's ACH deposits that have happened from those homeowners that set up for automatic recurring payments, whether that's check payments that come through, really anything for that matter, through whatever time period, you will see those inflows and outflows. So if you're looking for specific transactions within a particular date range, you can select that here. Just make sure you actually select the date that you're looking for. So I just expanded this to show activity from January 1, 2025 through today's date, March 25th, 2026. And now you can see whether they're expenses, whether they're income items. If you have any expenses, it'll also show the vendor that was utilized. So if you're ever looking in like this description search field for a particular vendor, you can start typing that in, and then that will pull up any of the expenses associated with that vendor that have cleared and posted to the bank account. That will also show, and I don't believe it's listed for that particular elevator transaction, but any invoices that are associated with that expense will also have a little paperclip attachment over on the right, and invoices are visible here too. So I know some of our board members that are on the call might be set up for invoice approvals and things of that nature through Strongroom, which is our bill pay processor. But whether you are or aren't, another nice feature of Vantaca is that those invoices and transactions and detail are all visible here. And again, it's one of the benefits of working with the partner banks in that the integration allows for a lot more timely updates. So My example is, hey, you know what? You are a diligent treasurer at your community. You always, go through the monthly financial packet that you receive from our accounting department, with a fine-tooth comb. But maybe there are transactions that you want to start looking into before that report comes out. Or maybe there are, you have a special assessment and you want to be tracking very diligently that people are making routine payments and on time. This is a nice feature to be able to go in there, take a look at the itemized transaction history, see when people's payments are posting, see when expenses are posting, what kind of payment it was deposited as, whether it was a credit card, whether it was ACH. All of those things just give you more and more visibility and more power to really just have insight and visibility into everything that's happening financially. So again, you have that option of looking at other columns. I believe all of them are checked here, so there isn't really anything left unturned. But again, all of these are searchable. So if you're looking for a specific transaction dollar figure, a check number, the type of transaction it was, the description, which in this case is often just the vendor, that will just automatically drop down any of the vendor options that do work at your community. Or if you're looking for the date of the transaction, you can also select that here. So this is just something we really like emphasizing, that it's there, it's visible, it's available to you. Also, it can be exported too. So if you ever need to download a copy of that because you like working in a different format and want to play around with anything, you also have that ability. One important asterisk, just remember, especially if these are recent, current month transactions, obviously, March is still open. March is not reconciled yet. So if you're looking at March transactions and if something doesn't look exactly right, or you're, hey, we have an auto debit that happens on the 24th of each month, I don't see it here yet. That's because the bank reconciliation hasn't yet happened. So that transaction will likely post in the next day or so in the system. But always remember that what you're looking at, especially for the current month, is largely unreconciled because that month has not closed out yet. So as you'll see here, there's this reconciled section, and then you can see that some of these recent March transactions are not yet reconciled because we have not received a bank statement to ensure that that we have that matching inflow or outflow corresponding with your bank statement. So that's the only thing to remember, but all of your more dated transactions in most cases will list that they are reconciled unless it's something that's a misnomer or something else that needs to be investigated. But otherwise, that's just the one thing and caveat to remember as you're going through any of these bank account search options. Similar and related to that is the reports function. So a lot of the financial reporting that is included in your monthly financial reports are also generable from Vantaca upon request as you go in and navigate the report section here. So if you wanted to look at an AR aging report and, hey, I can't find the financial report from March 2025 because I misplaced it, or maybe you didn't find it in the documents section, you can go here and just click view. And that'll open up your AR report. So then you have this nice report that gives you a little bit of a graph of what those balance consists of. It gives you an itemized list of what all those balances are categorized into in your chart of accounts. So whether that's late fees, key charges, assessments, bank returns, collection administration, all of those sorts of things. You can also generate for any of the reports that pop up in this similar pop-up format. You can change the dates. So if you wanted to see this as of today's date, March 25th, if you wanted to see this as of July 2025 because you're researching an old financial transaction or AR history, you can do that as well. So all of that and then all you need to do is just click this preview button, and that just regenerates the report through that date. And then now the report will have the name of the report and then the date that it's effective for. So included here as an example are AR aging, there's your balance sheet, your bank reconciliation report. If you wanted to view a copy of your budget generated from Vantaca, you can do that, or download it for that matter. If you needed to see a cash disbursement report, your GL trial balance, your income statement summary. So these two reports are nifty because these essentially function as your budget versus actuals. So if you wanted to take a look at that, because this is a test account, there isn't a lot of financial activity here, but this is generally the layout. So all of your operating income transactions for the period against the year on the right-hand side. Again, this mimics the statement of revenue and expenses that's normally included in your monthly financial report. But again, if you ever needed to generate a version of this report for a different time period, a distant time period in the past, or just a year to date, you could always just generate this here, and you can take a look at these. One of the nice things too that some boards don't always realize is that when you generate this particular report, the statement of revenues and expenses, when you click on any of the actual numbers here, this opens up all of the detail that consists of. So if you needed to look at your assessment income and you wanted to see all the transactions that made up that overarching number, you have that ability. If you had expense categories where it said, we've spent $5,000 on plumbing this year, where did that come from? What transactions made that happen? Same thing, you would just click on that $5,000 expense and it would just pull open that general ledger view of all of the plumbing expenses that happened for that time period that you selected. So again, a lot of good granular detail that's at your fingertips without even having to just wait for your monthly financial report or even having to pull up a copy if you've misplaced it or can't find it for any reason. And then finally, there are a couple of, well, not a couple, there's one primary one here, but often we'll get a question from a board member asking, hey, do we have, I don't see that there are tenants listed, or a recent leasing report to make sure that we have a log of any of the active leases for approved rentals within the community and who those tenants are. So if you are a community that does allow rentals at your community, all you need to do is just go under this homeowner section. You can download it or view it. And then this will pull up a copy of your tenant and lease report. So this will show by address, which owner it is. It'll list if there's a tenant name submitted here. So we have the sample of Calvin Coolidge. John Coolidge is the tenant. It'll list the move-in date. So we log when that person started living in the community, that tenant in this case. If they've moved out and if they're a past lease, that'll also be listed. You'll have their email address, their phone number.
I can't see it, Eric.
Oh, shoot.
Sorry.
Thank you.
There we go.
So I'll back up a second there. So after you click that tenant and lease report, it'll also open up a pop-up that looks like this. So again, it lists each address individually. It'll list the primary homeowner, the tenant name for whatever's been input for that particular tenant, their move-in date in this column. If it's a past lease or a move-out that's taken place or a past rental, their move-out date will be selected here. The tenant's contact information, so email and phone numbers, will also be listed on this tenant and lease report. And then most importantly, the lease start, the lease end, and the lease status. So if you are seeing, a report when you generate that where we have out-of-date leases, or if you see that leases are coming up on their expiration date, probably a good time to just make sure and check in with your manager that they're on top of that there isn't anything missing that we need to go back on. And then what's nice too is that because again, we use the action item system in Vantaca to process things like lease requests and tenant requests and things of that nature when there's ever unit turnover. If we ever need to reference the particular ticket that lease request was made or that lease approval, that's also logged here. So if we ever needed to go back to the board's approval for that particular lease or any sort of details that were in that initial request, that reference number or XN number is also listed here. And then similarly, on this associations dropdown, all of these have this kind of little downward or upward pointing arrow. Under association, you can generate an ARC report. which will just give you a brief summary of the ARCs that have been submitted, reviewed, or accepted or denied. In this case, it'll show the date, the person who either did that denial or did that last step in terms of whether the application was received, whether it was notifying the board or ARC committee, whether it's in the ARC vote status, and now it's in Andrew Jackson's hands to represent the ARC committee. So the status of these will be listed here for that particular ARC request. You'll see the dates by which it kind of worked through: application received, notify, vote, decision approved, conditional approval, and then finally completion. So this will be a nice little kind of bird's eye view of your active ARCs if you're a community that has a pretty good volume of those as they come up. And then similarly for collections, this is going to be similar to your AR report, but this more or less gives you a little bit broader of a view of just knowing how many are out there, what status they're at, whether they're at delinquency reminder, balance settled, maybe they're in collections at this point in time, but this gives you another kind of broader overview of any of the collections activity going on at your community. Finally, the last ones, and this kind of culminates under board tasks. But as Carrie mentioned, things like ARCs, things like work orders, things like collections activity, violations, a number of these things, as they work through the natural sort of progression, they become board tasks. They become things for which we need the board's input, the board's approval, the board's rejection. So the board tasks is a section that allows you to kind of have that all organized. So especially for those that are at larger communities where you have a pretty hefty volume of violations, of work orders, of ARCs on a weekly or monthly basis, this is a nice way to keep yourself organized, where you can see how many are in your queue for ARC requests. You can see how many fee waiver requests. Maybe there's an owner that is contesting a late fee that was posted. And before we grant or deny that, we want the board's input. That would be listed here. If there's a very express board task that needs to be looked at, that's very specific only to the board and doesn't really involve architectural requests or fee waivers, that would be listed here as kind of a more catch-all category. Board emails, if there's just general correspondence happening here, this would be listed under that as well. But most often you'll see things like board task, fee waiver request. It might be a violation request that you have to weigh in on as to whether that violation has been cured or not. But this is where you'll see your hub for looking at and making sure that that you're on top of anything that's been more or less assigned to you. For any of these specifically, if you just click on view, you're able to get the details here. So let's say Carl Redema, who reached out. We had a newly onboarded association, and generally our policy is for those first 60 days of the transition that we waive late fees. Let's say that, on day 61, someone still hasn't paid, and then now they got their first late fee. So maybe Carl reaches out and says, hey, I'd like to ask if the board or management would be willing to waive my late fee because I was out of town and I missed the transition emails and whatever his story is. This is where the board could either reply, as Carrie kind of shared earlier. Maybe that's just a reply to the manager. Maybe that's after the homeowner submitted it, you want to reply directly to them. Normally we'll take that off your hands. You don't have to be dealing with homeowner requests for, fee waivers yourselves. But we do want your blessing as to whether it's okay or not to be able to do that. So this is where you can simply, mark decline, mark approve. Obviously, if you're like a 5 or 7 or 3-person board, this is going to be based on the cumulative kind of input of the board as a whole. So if, we have 2 members that said decline, but we had 5 members that all said approve, the majority rules and things like that. So, but you do have that ability to approve or decline when these things come up. Similarly, that goes for ARCs. So if you do have, an architectural request, that needs to be advanced. You're comfortable with all the submissions. That owner has submitted all of the necessary documentation. There's nothing preventing that from moving forward. You can go in, you can reply, ask for any sort of additional context, and then you're able to go through and approve or deny as needed as well.
Can I piggyback on something when it comes to the board tasks really quick, Eric, if you don't mind?
Sure. Yeah, do you want me to switch over to you? Sure.
A lot of the functionality and specific to the board tasks, just know a lot of these items are the majority, if not all, are going to be emailed to you as well. And when they are emailed to you, if you haven't seen those items already, you will have that ticket number. Sometimes it is a little bit easier to then go into your portal. You've got that email, go into your portal and then take a look at the details in a different type of a view now that you're more comfortable with the software. So I definitely recommend using the portal, but just know all of these items will in fact be emailed to you, and you can reply to those emails as well as reply to those tasks within the portal as well.
Thanks, Carrie.
Welcome.
And then the final thing, and then we can just open it up to any remaining questions. I know I alluded to it before, but the board member how-tos. So there were already a number of pre-populated Vantaca guides and brief videos that are all 2.5 minutes or less. Some of them are as short as 30 seconds, but there's a few different items here that you can always look at to remind yourself of how to perform certain functions. Again, in the interest of customization, we can always add to this. One thing that I added for all boards was a copy of last year's budget best practice webinar, just that we had held at the start of the third quarter last year. We're also going to be doing a budget webinar again this year in June. So once we have that one, we'll upload this here just so that you always have that recording nicely available in your board member how-tos. But whether it's this presentation or others that you'd ever like to see, we can always add additional how-to content in this section as well. So with that, I think we can open it up to questions that either have not been covered yet or anything else that has come to mind. We can start with Sharon. It looks like you're first.
Yeah, this is about the customization stuff. I know like the Excel thing, and you can customize your columns. And it's probably stupid and redundant because it's based on login. But if I set it up the way I like to see it and I save it, if another board member goes on and looks at it, are they looking at their view or are they looking at my view? And can they change it? And if they change it, will it change my view?
This is for your own. I got it, Eric. This is your own display when you log into your portal. So the board members, other board members in your community can set up their display how they want. You set it up how you want.
Okay, thank you.
So if you need to help any of the other board members, like, hey, I have this column displayed, I think it's helpful, there you go.
And then next we had Catherine.
Yes, if a person has discrepancies in their account, do they go in and put in a where in this website do you go in and put that information in, and who deals with it?
So in terms of, like it just like individual information specific to that individual unit owner?
Yes.
So like you're saying, like, for example, like the incorrect phone number or an email address.
No, I'm saying my account statement is incorrect.
Oh, so like the charges or your payment history or anything like that?
Yes.
Okay. So
I can
case,
tackle that one too, if you want.
Yeah, go ahead, Carrie. Sure.
So there's a couple different ways you're going to communicate to management if you see a discrepancy, right? So the homeowner can, like Eric is showing right now, you can submit, any sort of a request, and there's the ability to choose from that specific type of request. We always hope that if it's something not specific to those categories that are listed, that you just do a general inquiry and it will come to our staff so that we can go ahead and tackle that. Additionally, if the owners aren't in the portal, they can of course send us an email, which will then input everything into Vantaca, again, for our staff or your manager to go ahead and address with that homeowner. If there is something specific where we need your input as a board member, of course, the manager will communicate with you in that aspect.
I mean, at this point in time, I've had a couple of 2 or 3 discrepancies already this year in my account. And I tried going to the website back in January and was unable to find any place where I could submit that information for someone to look at. And what I ended up doing was texting the property manager. I'm currently the president of the association. And I texted the property manager, and she is the person who went and cleared it up. And then I had another discrepancy in my account. And again, texted the property manager, because this is all really nice. But for the average homeowner going on here, trying to figure out, how do I tell somebody about the fact that I've got a problem with my account? And I know the property manager does not control those account statements that get emailed to us. Somebody else is in control of that. But I've listened through this whole thing, and I'm back to, well, I guess if I have a problem, I contact the property manager and let her go figure it out and get it corrected.
Well, that really shouldn't be the case, Catherine. I think ultimately, and I'm hoping that this can be helpful, but in those instances, like the exact page that I'm showing on my screen right now, this would be where you log that sort of issue. So
Okay.
like, while, I'm glad that your manager has been individually helpful and resourceful in getting that looked at. But one of the reasons that maybe it reared its head again is because your manager might have gone in to fix something, but it should have been maybe accounting that does it to make sure the fix is accurate. So what I would recommend.
Okay, go ahead.
I was just going to say, so you can always, like, if you prefer like talking through it over the phone, you can also call into customer service and they might be able to help you there or get you over to accounting or the assistant community manager if they can help. But if you just want to submit this online so that it just more easily gets over to the accounting department, what I would do is I would just go to this requests tab on the left-hand side. You would go to new request, and especially general request here.
Mm-hmm.
And when you go to submit this, if you know specifically it's, a fee that needs to be waived, you can select that very specifically. If there was an overpayment and you needed a refund, you can do that. But I think in this case, if it's just, hey, you know what, my assessment charge is off by $1, or if it's something where, hey, I paid my special assessment in full, but I saw that another recurring charge was on there, I would recommend putting that in as general inquiry. And then in terms of the information that you supply, I would just be as specific as possible. In the subject line, you can note that even if it just says ledger is inaccurate. And then now you can put in, I was viewing my statement from February 28th and noticed, yada, yada, yada. So you can put that in there. If there's anything you're seeing, whether that's a copy of the statement that you're looking at or anything like that, you can always attach that. But obviously we have access to your account. But I would put in all of those details in here. And then once you submit that, like, the reason why I like this method rather than calling your manager or texting them is that when your manager, they or their assistant will get this action item first. And then once they see that this is something that should go to the accounts receivable team so that they can look at your ledger, verify if there's any inaccuracies, make any adjustments, they can easily assign this request over to the accounting team, to the right party, so that you get a prompt answer. So
Okay.
this is the method that I would use going forward. If you're running into any issues with that, let us know, of course. Or if you're running into an issue with responsiveness, just, ping us or call your manager about that. But this general requests page is what I would use if you run into that again.
Okay, and this did not exist in January. Am I correct?
No, this all did. The only thing that was new as of this year was just the ability for boards to be able to post things in the calendar and then upload documents to the documents section of the portal. The requests function has always been in here.
Because what I am seeing right now on my screen, general request, that did not come up in January at the beginning of the month when I had the first discrepancy in my account balance. That did not come up. Otherwise, I would have submitted a request.
Okay. We can take a look at, I'll look into that, Catherine, and see if there was anything strange going on with your settings, but we didn't hear any other issues with that. But let us look into that and we can get back to you if there's anything that we know.
Okay. Thank you.
Gail, you had a question?
Yes, I very much appreciate the fact that the board members can now upload documents. That's terrific. But I would like to be able to also delete prior versions of an old document. And the last time I tried to do that, there didn't seem to be a way to do it.
Interesting. Let me actually take a look here.
Okay.
I think that might be a function of the manager, just to, to prevent any mistakes made of accidentally deleting something. I think if you needed something, another version to get out of there, definitely reach out to your manager so they can go ahead and delete that. This is more or less giving you the ability to upload specific documents. You're not able to, at this time, delete any just out of mistakes that may come to be.
Yeah, I figured that's what it was, but it was a pretty clear cut. We were putting up a new rules and regulations and I just wanted to take the old ones down. So it was pretty simple.
Yeah.
So anyway.
I'm with you. I mean, I personally trust you, Gail, to be able to use that well and responsibly. But, having to software often is set up in a way for like the lowest common denominator. And sometimes there will be folks that just don't understand or misuse that. And then suddenly we've got folks deleting really important documentation. But if there is anything that needs to get deleted, make that a request to contact the management team and they should be able to assist with that.
Okay, thank you.
Sure thing. Anything else before we wrap for the evening? Yeah, Adrian?
Eric, in the chat, Charles asked if financials, work orders, etc. from prior to 2024 would be made available. I'm not sure.
Yeah, so financial reports from prior like management and things of that nature that we received in the transition, we can absolutely get those up there. That's often something that we'll do, like especially like if you're a community that's come on board in the last year or two, sometimes we do need to go back and make sure that like historical financials are uploaded. So the management team can work on that, provided we received all of that from the prior management team. So if anything's missing, we can get those uploaded. For prior work orders, that's a bit more complicated just because, sometimes we'll get like a data dump of like PDFs of emails that are like the work orders that the management company was working on at the time. And we don't really have a good way to be able to input all of those individually in the system. But if we do have like old like PDFs that like they sent us of like old ARC requests, old work order reports, if there's like contextual history, we can like sift through what's in the files that we have and upload whatever might be helpful. It just won't be probably not in a format that's super user friendly. You won't have like individual work orders and like the requests function, for instance, if they're from your old management company. But historical documents, things that we received in the transition, we can get uploaded. We just need a better idea of kind of specifically what you're looking for, and we can do our best to get those into the document portal. And then, yeah, Larry,
Thank you.
prior approved ARCs, if there's ones that were approved like by a prior, boards or management prior to us being engaged as your agent, we can look through any of those that we received in the transition, upload those into a folder in the documents section. We just have to know what we're looking for in those transition files. From Buildium. That's a good question. I don't know if we have access to, if we still have like Buildium ARC requests or things of that nature. I can take a look. I don't know if we still have access to download or like old reporting. But maybe if you want to reach out to us separately, we can dive in and see if we can find what you might be looking for, Larry. Okay. Then with that, we can go ahead and look to conclude the meeting tonight. I want to just say thank you to everyone who was able to stay on for the entirety of the presentation. I know it was a little bit longer, but I think it's valuable. We are going to start doing these a bit more frequently, just so that, we can capture if there's board turnover and we need to start educating new board members. If anyone ever needs, I'm a person that likes to learn by doing a lot. So if it's something where you want to attend the next one that we do in a few months, we'd like to keep a good cadence of these going, help continue to educate, especially if there's new features that ever come out. That'll be a nice time for us to do these. So if you have any additional questions offline that you want us to address or work on with you, feel free to reach out to our team. Anyone that had some escalation items, reach out to us separately so we can get on top of that. We've got a really good leadership team that'll drill down and make sure that those things improve. And then finally, quick plug, we do have a session coming up in June that I mentioned previously around budgeting. And we'll be going through working with our budget builder, best practices, and a number of other really important and helpful items. So stay tuned for that invite. We do have one coming up around capital coordination and planning coming up on April 7th. So many of you should receive those invites shortly. And just continue to stay tuned. We really enjoy these education sessions. We like getting these recordings out. We post them on the website. So if you've got suggestions on things that we can or should be hitting on in future iterations of this, we'll take them. Please get those over to us. We love educating where we can. And then finally, thank you, Carrie. Thank you, Adrian. Appreciate your support and helping. It's a nice team effort. So
Thank you, Eric and Adrian. And thank you, board members, for coming, and I hope you learned a lot. We want you to be successful.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great evening and have a great rest of the week. Enjoy the weather out there.